Today's episode is inspired by comfort food. And when I was a kid, my parents used to always have stocked in the freezer those little seemingly homemade chicken pot pies that you would just throw in either the microwave or the oven, and then you just eat it right there out of the carton. But as I've gotten older, those clearly are not the healthiest foods, but they tasted so good. So I wanted an opportunity to try and recreate that today. Without further ado, let's go ahead and make some chicken pot pie. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of Cooking with Coach. I'm your host, Coach Jay. Let's go ahead and get started with our pot pie today. So first, we need to make our crust, and that is the basis of a chicken pot pie, or any pie for that matter. But we all know that a traditional crust usually has butter, it has regular flour. So we're gonna cut that out completely and we're gonna change it up. In this bowl, I already have measured half a cup of my homemade baking mix. Now, if you're new to my channel, I have an entire video on how to make this mix. I made this particular one without any sugar, so this is more of my savory mix that I'm gonna be making today. And this is gonna be our crust that we're gonna top our pot pies with. Now, we know that those little frozen ones, they have the crusts on the side and then the crust on the top. We're only topping our pot pies with crust because we're gonna be putting the filling inside of a oven-safe ramekin, and this is just gonna go on top to encase it all like a regular pie. What I'm gonna also now add is about a quarter cup of my coconut oil. And being that this is a pie crust type of consistency that we don't want it too wet. You want to be very careful about how much wet ingredients that you're going to be putting. So next we have our egg whites. So I'm only going to be putting just a small amount. We're talking maybe a quarter cup, if that. And all that's gonna do is it's just gonna let it solidify and cook properly when we put it on top of our pie. Now I'm just going to mix this, and it's going to turn into a really dry dough. Almost the same texture as a cookie dough consistency, but remember, we have coconut oil in here. So what's gonna happen is we're gonna go ahead and put this in the freezer. And this is what it should look like. I'm gonna go ahead and scoop it out for y'all to see. So this is what it should look like. This is all of the batter. It should look like a nice solid ball. We're gonna put this in the refrigerator and we're gonna let it set because it has coconut oil. So when you put coconut oil in a colder climate, it's going to solidify and get nice and firm, and it's gonna be a lot more pliable and easy for us to play with and form our crust. That's now done. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this in saran wrap, and we're gonna put this in the refrigerator for it to set while we make our filling. Now that our pie crust is in the refrigerator setting, we're gonna go ahead and get started on our filling. Now this is gonna be extremely simple, super easy, and majority of the stuff that we're gonna be using, or that I'm using today, is already taken care of for me. If you're somebody who likes to cook your own chicken, cook your own vegetables, I'm not gonna stop you. For me, I just like to save some time because my day is so busy that I need things just ready to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and slice up my already cooked chicken. I just got this from the grocery store. It came in a little container. All I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take these strips and I'm gonna cube them into small cubes. So I have here about 8 to 10 ounces of chicken breast. This is already marinated, so this is the best part. I don't have to season the chicken or add any additional flavorings to the chicken because it's already been done for me. So grab your knife, and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start cubing up our chicken. Is just barely heat it up and mix it up with our vegetables so everything can just be combined and have a nice, beautiful flavor together. So I'm just cutting them up into even cubes, and we're only making 2 pot pies. So you don't need to go a little crazy. Of course, if you're making this for a family of 4, or if you have a bunch of guests, just go ahead and multiply the recipe as many times as you need it. So now we're gonna go ahead and take our medium saucepan. I'm gonna go ahead and transfer the chicken to the cold saucepan. And now to our saucepan, we're gonna go ahead and add about 1/4 cup of frozen vegetables. Yep, I said it, I told you. I have no time to sit down and prep all these veggies myself and cook this chicken. Sometimes I'm just in a rush and I need something quick and healthy. So frozen veggies into the chicken. Just like so. And because the vegetables are frozen, what's gonna happen is the water is going to heat up the chicken at the same time. So we want to heat everything together so that way the vegetables can get some of the flavor of the chicken before we start adding in our other ingredients. So on medium-high heat, you're gonna wanna go ahead and start warming up your food, and you want to just cover it and leave it alone. We don't need to do anything at this point for our filling. So now that our chicken and vegetables are on the stove, we're gonna go ahead and get started with our gravy. Now we know that chicken pot pie has that beautiful gravy that when you break open that crust and you spoon out your filling, it's coated in that beautiful, delicious gravy. We're gonna make something similar, but again, also very healthy. So here I just have chicken stock. If you're not a fan of chicken stock, you can go ahead and use vegetable stock or whatever stock you have on hand. That is totally fine. I was able to get my hands on some low sodium chicken stock. Ideally, you want your stock to be low sodium. You want to control the amount of salt that is in your food. So I usually try to go for low sodium or no sodium at all, so that way I can just control the salt. But here I'm just gonna pour into my measuring cup 1 cup of the stock. And from here, we're gonna add our thickening agent. Now we know that cornstarch or a roux is usually what's going to thicken a gravy up. It's either a roux, which is flour and butter, and then you add your liquid, or it's cornstarch to a cold liquid, and then when you heat it up, it gets nice and thick. Well, we wanna cut both of those out. Most people are not comfortable using cornstarch. They don't wanna feed that to themselves or their kids. And we do wanna make it healthy, so we're not gonna be going for the other option, which is the roux version. So here I have arrowroot. Now, if you don't know what arrowroot is, it is a plant-based thickener. So this is naturally occurring in nature. This is not a chemical. For every cup of broth, you want about 2 teaspoons. And you want to treat this just like you would cornstarch. So you want to put it in cold liquid and then heat it up as so it can get nice and thick. So I just added 2 tablespoons of my arrowroot, and now I'm gonna go ahead and whisk this up, and then we're gonna throw it in with our chicken and vegetables. Once you've combined it, your golden colored broth is gonna start to turn a little milky white, and that's normal. We're gonna go ahead and now pour this into our now low temperature fire with our chicken and our vegetables, and that's gonna thicken up and create our beautiful gravy that's gonna go with our filling. Once you've poured your liquid, you want to go ahead and give it a nice quick stir, and that's just to make sure that everything is going to be mixed. We have no sticky bits at the bottom from warming up the vegetables and the chicken. And this is where you now can start adding your seasonings. Being that the chicken is already seasoned, the only thing that I'm gonna add is just a little extra salt and some cracked black pepper and call it a day. It's been about 8 or so minutes, and just look how thick that liquid has gotten. It's coated all the chicken, all the vegetables, and it is exactly where we need it to be as our filling for our pot pie. So go ahead and shut off the heat. You're gonna just leave this on the stove, and you're just going to let this cool on its own. And we're gonna go ahead and get started with our pie crust. All right, so I just pulled out our dough from the refrigerator, and it has definitely gotten a lot thicker. Because remember, whenever you add coconut oil to any cold temperature, it's going to get very solid. And that's what we want, so we have to work quick to make sure that this doesn't get too warm and then just fall apart. Once you've taken your plastic wrap off, we're gonna go ahead and start to form our 2 toppers for our pot pies. So taking this ball of dough, we're gonna cut it into even halves, and we're gonna roll them up, and then we're gonna use parchment paper to help us with pressing them down and creating beautiful rounds. You want to work very quickly, like I said before, because coconut oil, just even within your hands, can melt very quickly. So you want to have roughly 2 even dough balls. And if you find that one is a little bit bigger than the other, that is totally fine. All you just need to do is just remove some from one side and place it in the other. I wouldn't get too worried about it if they're not 100% exact. Just have fun with it, eye it, do the best that you can. This is low carb anyway, and it's gonna taste amazing. Go ahead and grab your parchment paper. I think I said wax paper before, but we're using parchment paper. And if you notice, I just place them evenly distanced from one another. I'm gonna go ahead and fold the paper on top like so. And ever so gently, you can even use the bottom of a plate. I'm using the ramekin that I'm gonna be using. And you can go ahead and just start pressing them down as best as you can. Now we want this to meet the edges of our ramekin, so we want to go ahead and flatten them out even more. This is where I would recommend, if you have a rolling pin, go ahead and use a rolling pin. Just make sure that you have enough space to work with. Have my handy dandy rolling pin, and I'm just gonna go ahead and apply even pressure to my dough. And the great thing about using parchment paper is you can see the dough as it's spreading out. So you can actually take this, place it on top, and see if it fits. If it's barely perfect, you're golden. Now, if you're like me and you're super clumsy, my dough balls just literally stuck together. That is no big deal. All you just need to do is you just need to take your knife and you just want to cut it down the middle like that, and then you can go ahead and place your filling and this on top of that. So now that our filling has cooled enough, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start to place our filling inside of our ramekins, and then we're gonna top it with our crust. When you're filling your ramekins, you want to make sure it's not all the way to the rim, because this will bubble over. So I have it just barely underneath the rim. We're talking maybe a couple of centimeters. And then we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna take our pie crust and ever so gently, if you can, place them on top of your ramekin. Now this is gonna be the challenge. Because they're so thin and delicate, if you're using one piece of parchment, you might have to cut the parchment all the way down. For you to have two individual papers. Voila. I know, I'm so chefy, right? And then you're just gonna go ahead and take this and just place this on top of your ramekin like so. And then you want to slowly help it out by peeling it off. Take your time, don't rush. You don't want to break the pie crust. And if you do, it's no big deal. You can take your excess and just place it on top of the cracks. If you have excess right here, you can fold it over or you can just cut it off completely. It's totally up to you. This is homemade. So I'm just gonna use my fingers because it's super easy to just break the dough, and I'm just going to go ahead and remove all of the excess on the sides. And there you go. You have a pot pie ready for the oven. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the exact same with our second ramekin. So now that our two pies are completely made and ready for the oven, I'm gonna go ahead and transfer them onto a lined cookie sheet. And I said lined on purpose because this might bubble over. If you get lucky and it doesn't, congratulations, but I don't like to take my chances. So I'm gonna go ahead and put them on my lined cookie sheet and put them in a 350-degree oven for about 15 to 20 minutes. All right, I smell pie crust. Let's go ahead and get these bad boys out of the oven. They look beautiful. Gorgeous. I can't tilt it to the camera because I know they're gonna fall over, but I'm gonna do my best to just show you. Ooh! Look at that golden brown. I mean, it's a little cooked on the edges, but I mean, this is a homemade pie. Oh, I'm so excited for this. They are perfectly golden brown. They are nice and firm to the touch. I'm gonna go ahead and let these cool for just a few minutes before I just spoon into one and show you what that looks like. I'm so excited. And now that our pies are fully cooled or cooled enough to try, let's go ahead and try this guy. I'm super excited. Just take a look. I just want you to hear this if you can. That is a serious crust. All right, let's go ahead and dive right in. I want to get you involved. I want to get you to see this. Check this out. Just breaks right through. Oh. And look at that steam. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Holy moly. This literally tastes like that frozen chicken pot pie my parents used to buy me. And this is so much better for you. Honestly, if this is not good, healthy comfort food, I don't know what is. This is low carb, high protein, dairy free, and just chock full of goodness. I honestly hope that you do try this recipe as soon as you can. This is amazing. Thank you for coming to my episode today on Cooking with Coach. And have a great day. Gosh.